this morning will be coming from Second John 1. There's only one book in Second John, so Second John 1, and I'm going to read verses 5 through 8 in your hearing. And now I beseech thee, lady, not as though I wrote a new commandment unto thee, but that which we had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment, that as ye have heard from the beginning, ye should walk in it. For many deceivers are entered into the world, who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Look to yourselves, that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward. That we receive a full reward. And if I could use for a subject message on today, I would like to use the Obey promo code. The Obey promo code. The promo code. And today I will not necessarily be teaching from a text, more so than teaching a principle. Though we will start out in Second John, we may reference to and or end up in Deuteronomy 28. Again, I'm not necessarily teaching a text, more so than I am teaching a principle today, because sometimes we can be so focused on the text that we lose the principle that we are to apply, that is being disclosed or being revealed in the text. And this week I was shopping for a client, and it was somewhere around February the 29th that they made a purchase, and the item that they purchased, it was purchased at a specific price. But a few days later, I noticed that I got an email communication, and it had a long code to it. And basically it was a code that offered an additional percentage off the purchase that was made, or that you would make if you applied the code. The code, y'all ever seen those long codes? They are something like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Those real long codes. But how many of us are thankful for copy and paste, that we don't have to sit there and type out the whole code when we are trying to do something? And I had two options how I was going to handle the specific transaction in order to get my client back the most money that she could possibly get back for her purchase. One of my options was to either cancel the previous order and reorder it and apply the code, or I had to actually call customer service. And how many of us dread sometimes calling customer service, because the wait is just so long? You have to go through so many prompts, and you have to go through so many automated prompts, and then if you push the wrong one, it will automatically hang up on you, and you got to call back. And that's a little irritating at sometimes, especially when you are crunched for time and you're sitting there and you're just like, oh, can you just give me somebody, and then make sure that they speak the same kind of language that I am speaking, so we can understand each other. But nevertheless, those were my options, and I chose the latter option because I did not want to cancel the order. I did not want to lose what my client had purchased. So therefore, I go through the process of waiting on the phone, going through the automated system until I can get someone on the phone. And once I got them on the phone, I actually gave her, she asked me for the code, and I couldn't type the code in. I actually had to verbally read the code out for her. But I want you to take note of the principle. Once she applied the code, though I had already made the purchase, and once she applied the code, it gave me a better deal on the product. it gave me a better deal on the product. But even though, I want you to understand, even though that the code was there and the additional percentage off was available to me, it would not be applicable. I would not experience it. I would not benefit from it until the code was applied. So I went through the process. I wanted my client to have it, and I want you to get it. Sometimes you gotta want it so bad that you're willing to go through the process. Is that anybody's testimony on today? I want it. I want what God has for me so much to the point that I'm going to go through the process. I'm going to go through the process. I'm going to go through the waiting. I'm going to go through applying his word so I can get what he promised to me. Come on, did somebody just catch that? And applying the code was the only way to make sure that I got all of the discounts that were available. The discounts were available, but they were not made accessible. They did not work for me until I applied the code. So I had to go through the process. And in our text, we will find that the Apostle John is saying something. He's reiterating a principle that is beneficial for all of us if we apply it. And the first thing that I want to draw your attention to in the scriptures that we read, and Antonio does not have to post those, but for you who are taking notes, reference back to those. And you can post it if you are ready. But the one thing that he said that I want you to love one another. In verse 5, John said, I want you to love one another. But then in the very next verse, the Apostle John begins to explain what that love is. And he said, and this love. So he said, basically, he said, I just don't want to tell you to do something. He said, let me tell you how to do it. Because sometimes there are people that will tell you what to do, but then yet they don't necessarily they tell you what you should do, but they don't tell you how you should do it. And oftentimes we get love mixed up. But John said, the kind of love that you may be thinking about, he said, I got to break this down. I got to put emphasis on this so it is no confusion at what kind of love that we are talking about. And when John is talking about this kind of love, and we had to deal with this kind of love first, because in order for us to get everything that God has promised to us, there is something that we must do. And John says this, he said, love one another, but then he says, and this love. He said, let me give you the meaning of what this love is. The Apostle John is saying this love is just not a feeling. How many of us know that love is just not a feeling? Ooh, it's not something that makes you all bubbly on the inside. It's not something that gives you butterflies in your stomach. It's not something that you just feel when you're just meeting somebody for the first time, or y'all are going on the first date, or y'all are sharing, your very first couple of texts, and, you're feeling all warm because it feels new and it's exciting and all of this other stuff. But the kind of love that the Apostle John was talking about, look at what the text says, and, it says, you don't have to post it out, Antonio. He said, watch this. And he said, that ye walk after his commandments. Oh my God. The kind of love that the Apostle John is talking about, it has nothing to do with how you feel. Ooh. Oh my God. This kind of love has nothing to do with how you feel. This kind of love has everything to do with how you are, how committed you are. Oh my God. And some people miss real love because they base love off of a feeling and not a commitment. Real love says, I'm going to be with you when it's good. I'm going to be with you when it's bad. I'm going to be with you in the ups. I'm going to be with you in the downs. I'm going to even be with you when I'm looking at you sideways, rolling my eyes. Come on. I'm talking to my married folks now. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Like, I ain't really feeling you today, but because I love you and I'm committed to you, I'm going to get in there and cook even though I don't feel like it. My feelings is telling me not to cook, but my commitment says I got to do this anyway. Uh-oh. My feelings tell me one thing, but my commitment says I got to do it a different way. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? My feelings tell me one thing, but your commitment is saying to do it another way. And this is the kind of love that the Apostle John is talking about, when your feelings is telling you one thing, but your commitment is saying, I got to do it another way. I got to do it another way. I got to do it another way. In order for me to get the benefits that I'm expecting to get, I got to do it another way. But then the Apostle John, he goes on and he says, that as ye have heard from the beginning. He said, I'm not telling you anything new. He said, but all I'm telling you to do, he said, I'm telling you to keep walking in it, to keep walking in that commitment, to keep walking in that commitment, to keep walking in that thing that you said that you was going to do. And I love Charles Stanley's definition of commitment. And he said the commitment, and I might not be saying it word for word verbatim, but he said commitment is doing what you said that you was going to do long past when the feeling that you said it in is gone. And so basically what he's saying is that you are doing it based off commitment. It has nothing to do with how you feel. And sometimes because we don't really understand what love is, we can misplace certain actions because we think that love is a feeling. Oh, I'm not feeling that anymore. I'm not feeling them anymore. I don't love them anymore. And in some cases, you never loved them to start with. You had a feeling of adoration, but it was not love. You had a feeling of Googleness, but it was not love. In some cases, not all cases. You was just infatuated with how the new thing felt. And because we had so many previous bad experience, oh, this is something new, so I just love this. I love the way that it feels. I love the way that it feels. But the Apostle John is saying real love is when you do it past how you feel. He said really loving God is doing what God says past how you feel. It has nothing to do with how you feel. More so than it does doing it out of your commitment to God. But I want to skip down to verse 8. Because the Apostle John, he says, look to yourselves, that you lose not the things which you have taught, that which you have wrought, or in translation, don't lose all the things that you have worked for, because there's some of us that we have been through a lot. We've been through a lot. And we know, there are some of us that know that if it was not for the hand of God, and if it was not for the protection of God, if it was not for the grace of God, if it was not for the mercy of God, that we would have been taken out. We wouldn't even be here. You might be like, well, Pastor Fran, what does all this have to do with a promo code that you was talking about? We're getting to that. Just stay with me. I got to lay out this first so we can get back to the promo code. Because the Apostle John is talking to us and he's telling us, and he said, you got to love God beyond how you feel so much to the point that you're willing to obey what he said. It's not about how you feel, but it's about your commitment. It does not mean that God does not care about how you feel, because God does care about how you feel. Because there are so many scriptures where God says, come unto me, all of you who are heavy burdened, who are, you're stressed out, you're worried, you have cares, you have concerns. So please do not interpret that as if God does not care about how you feel. He just wants you to do all the things that he is asking you to do. That is not what God is saying. God is saying, I care so much about how you feel that I will give you, I'm going to help you prioritize what's more important. Oh God. See, some of us think that God is trying to withhold stuff from us because we can't have it when we want to have it. No, all God is doing is trying to place us and get us in a place that we prioritize what's more important. Watch this, so we can have what it is that we're praying, believing, decreeing, and declaring that He is going to give unto us. Oh my God. How many of us know that prioritization matters? Because if you prioritize the wrong things in the wrong places, the things that you should have prioritized first will go lacking, and then it will affect the things that shouldn't have been prioritized first. Let me give you a great example or analogy for that. So have you, let's just say, for instance, I'm going to use myself for an example. If I have my mortgage due and my light bill due, what good is it for me to, on a consistent basis, pay my light bill without paying my mortgage? Come on, does that make sense? Whew. Oh my God. Watch this. I need them both because they work hand in hand. Uh-oh. Are y'all following me on that? If you are, just give Pastor Fran a hand wave or type it over in the chat section. I need them both. But if I prioritize my light bill over my mortgage, what good is it for me to pay my light bill and do not pay my mortgage? Because if I do not pay my mortgage, I will just be paying a light company for something that I can't even use. Are y'all seeing what I'm saying? Prioritization matters. And some of the stuff that we think that God was withholding from us and that God did not want us to have was not actually the case. All God was trying to do was get you in a position that you prioritize the one first who was going to be able to keep and sustain the things that you was asking and believing for. Whether it's your relationship, whether it's your money, whether it's your health. God was just putting you in positions and placing you in a mental capacity that you would honor Him first. This is why He's telling you to obey my commandments and to walk in love. He said, because watch this, if you prioritize me, the one who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that you can ask or think, watch this, what is your light bill then? What is your, he said, watch this, if you prioritize me first, he said, I'm the one that can handle everything else. Woo. And oftentimes we want what we want so bad, and we are not able to control our desires and our cravings that we get things in the wrong priority. And then we're trying to make justification at why we did it. Because the enemy is telling us, God is not going to do that for you. That's not going to happen for you. What makes you think that God is going to do that for you? Has anybody ever dealt with that? Like, oh, and then therefore you started doing things your own way because you felt like it wasn't going to happen for you. But all God was doing was taking you through the prioritization process. Because what God was telling you is, if you put me first, he said, watch this. He said, I will take care of everything that concerns you. But oftentimes what we do is we want to acquire it the way that we want to acquire it, but still yet then bring it back to God to take care of. And God is saying, put me first. Because if you put me first, I'll take care of everything else. If you apply me first, oh God. And that's what the Apostle John is telling us. God is saying, apply me first. I know there are some things that you want. Watch this. And there are some things that you also need. Pastor Fran ain't gonna go there. But there are some things that we actually need as well. Whole man, spiritually, physically, naturally, emotionally, there are some things that we need. And God said, if you will prioritize me, if you will apply me first, if you will apply the obey code, the obey promo code, he said, I'm going to give you things. I'm going to do things for you that wouldn't otherwise be done. If I had not applied that code, I would not have got the product at the price that I got it at. Oh, I hope somebody caught that. Because some of us are getting the product. We're getting what we want, but the price that we are paying is too high. Woo, shit out of a high. That's why we have so many people now that are emotionally damaged, they're spiritually damaged, they're mentally damaged, because some of us, not in all cases, but we're paying a price that's too high to get the very same thing that God said, I will give to you, and I will give it to you at a price that you didn't even have to pay for. He said, because I paid for it all. Woo. Did somebody just catch that? Just type it over. He paid for it all. He paid for it all. I want you to catch that. I took some of my family to breakfast yesterday. And they didn't have to pay the price. I hope somebody is catching this. They didn't have to pay the price that they would have had to normally pay if they had went on their own. Oh, did you catch that? But because they went with their parents, because he went with his mother and his father, they paid for it. Come on here. And some of the things that we are out here doing on our own, we're paying a price that God never intended for us to pay, because he said, I will do it for you because I paid the price for it already. But you just have to wait until I do it. Whew. All the times that my son went to breakfast without me, who paid for it, Antonio? He said he did. And it's something about when he gets around his mama and his daddy, he acts like he is not a working man anymore. Don't know how that works up in there, quite honestly. His brother is giving a hand clap too, but I don't know what happens, but something happens, and I see my other son just keep giving hand claps, so I'm gonna have to call him after church to find out what he really means about that. So just look for me to call you, baby. But nevertheless, on the other hand, you know, he knew that I ain't gotta pay for this. Come on. Matter of fact, I told him that I was going to pay. Y'all ain't hearing me. But because I told him that I was going to pay, I noticed that he ordered differently. Woo! And sometimes what happens is, watch this, I told him that I was going to pay, but he had to do something. Oh God. I said, meet me at the IHOP. I need for y'all to catch this. I said, meet me at the IHOP in Parker. I told him where to meet me. It's good. I told him where to meet me. And I told him what time to meet me. And I also gave specific instructions. Meet me at the IHOP in Parker at 10:30. I want y'all to catch this. I gave him location. I gave him the brand of the restaurant we was going to eat at. And I gave him time. I was specific in what I was asking him to do in order for, you know, the bill to be taken care of. I did something somewhat sort of on purpose, that I'm going to use in the message on today. I was about 5 minutes late because I was packing a box. No excuse, but I was about 5 minutes late getting there. But because I had promised him something, whew, he stayed. Come on. Did y'all just catch that? He stayed. He stayed. He stayed. And God is saying, I'm giving you my word. I'm giving you these commandments. I'm telling you things to do. Not to deprive you of the things that I know you want and or need. But all I'm trying to do is put you in a position to let you know that if you do what I tell you to do, I'm going to take care of the bill. Woo. Oh my God. I know you thought I wasn't going to come because you didn't think I was on time. But if you will stay, I'm going to take care of the bill. If you just apply my word and you do what I tell you to do, you obey what I tell you to obey. I know it may look like I'm not coming. I know you may think that I ain't going to do it. But if I told you to be there, if I told you to walk in my word, if I told you to obey my commandments, then you can rest assured I'm going to take care of the bill. Not only did he, watch this, did he eat his meal, but if I'm not mistaken, he left. Y'all ain't hearing me. He left with part of my food as well. What are you saying in that, Pastor Fran? That you're going to leave if you stay in the will of God and you obey God. You're going to leave with more than what you thought that you was coming for. Oh my God. And if we can learn to get in the place and stay in the place that we are prioritizing God's word over how we feel, over what we want, when we want it, and how we want it, I guarantee you, you're going to come out with more than what you went in with. He came in the restaurant with nothing in his hand. Matter of fact, I'm going to just be honest with y'all. When I asked him to leave the tip, he opened up his wallet and said, I ain't got no cash. Somebody just say, thank God for technology. Cash App, Apple Pay, and Zelle. But he left. Watch this. He came in with nothing in his hand. But he left carrying something that he didn't even have to pay the price for, because the price was already paid. And this is what the Apostle John is encouraging us in. He said, stay in the will of God. This is why he said, walk in. He said, love God. Not just have a feeling of adoration towards God. He said, but love God with a committed lifestyle of service, that you will do what he said, even if it means that it feels like you're not getting what you want out of it. Because just know, I need for some of y'all to know that ordering time is coming. Come on. Did somebody catch that? Ordering time is coming. And you're going to be able to place your order for the things that some of the things that you want. Not all of the things that you want. For some of the things that you want that is going to bring God glory. And when the server walked to our table, he said, this is what's on the menu. How many of you know that when you be in the place that God has told you to be into, and you do the things that God told you to do, and you be in the place that God told you to be in, and you're there at the time that he told you to be in, watch this, he gonna hand you a menu where you can order what you want and what you need. Oh my God. But I want you to look at one thing that the Apostle John said in verse 8. towards the end. He said, I'm telling you to do this. And I came wanting you to apply the same principle that the Apostle John was implementing in this teaching. He said that, I'm going to read it all. He said, look unto yourselves that we lose not the things which we have wrought or worked for, in translation, but that we receive a full, somebody type full over in the chat section, a full reward. Oh my God. The Apostle John is saying, this is why I am asking you. He said, this is why I am actually petitioning you. He said, this is why I am encouraging you. He said, this is why I am giving this word of God. He said, because I don't want you to leave this world and not be full. Come on here. When my son left that restaurant yesterday, his mother and his father made sure that he was full. And if we, being earthly parents, can make sure he was full, despite everything that we have been through, how much more will your God make sure that you are full, because he loves you much more. He said, but stay in my will. He said, stay in my word. He said, I'm going to make sure you're full. Come on here. But it's one thing that had to happen. I'm going to throw this out here for my other baby. He stayed. In order for him to stay full, he had to stay connected. He had to stay connected. And when you stay connected, you can expect to be full. I don't care what comes. I don't care what goes. Or rather, expect to be full. And if I have that heart towards my natural child, how much more is it that God has that heart towards us, that he wants you full? How many of you know that God wants you full? He wants you fully committed. So watch this. So you can walk in the full manifestation of the things that he has promised you. And that's what the Apostle John was saying. He said, I don't want you to leave this opportunity not full. Pastor Friend does not get up here and try to preach to you and teach to you just so you can live a boring Christian life. Because it's not boring. But let me tell you this. I tell you the things that I tell you. I share the word of God with you because I want every one of you to leave full. Watch this. I just don't want you to leave full. Type that over in the chat section for me, Aretta or Altonio. I just don't want you to L-E-A-V-E full. Watch this. But Pastor Fran is teaching this word because I want you to live full. Come on here. I want you to L-I-V-E. I want to see you live fully in the promises of the things that God has purposed for you, BAM 11. I don't want you to live beneath the things that God has already purposed for you and paid the price for you. But in order for you to live full, you're going to have to live fully committed. Woo! Oh my God. In order for you to live full, you're going to have to live full. Uh-oh, did somebody catch that? Because some of us want to live full. We want to live full of the blessings that God has for us. How many is that our testimony? Give us a hand wave or type it over in the chat section. That's me, Pastor Frank. I want to live full. I want to live full. But if you want to live full, then you're going to have to live fully committed. Woo. And if you live fully committed, then I guarantee you, you're going to live full. Live full, live fully committed so you can live full of the manifested promises of God here and in heaven. And I'm not going to go into it because we'll get into it and we'll go way past it. But Deuteronomy 28 touches on the same principle, that if we obey God, we're going to live a full life. We're going to live full, and God is going to manifest these things that he has promised to us. But the one thing that the Apostle John did warn of, he said, do not be deceived. Oh my God. He said, I'm telling you, I want to see you live full. He said, but don't be deceived, because there's so many times that the enemy is telling you that it's a better way. Watch this. The enemy does not necessarily tell us it's a better way. You know how the enemy gets us tricked up? The enemy does not tell us it's a better way. Let me just be honest with you. Where most of us has gotten tripped up at and deceived by the enemy is because the enemy tells us it's a quicker way. Woo, come on here. Did somebody just catch that? The enemy does not tell us that it's a better way. The enemy tells us it's a quicker way. And most of us go for quicker than we will longer lasting. Because when we go for quick, we're trying to satisfy our flesh. We're trying to satisfy this feeling of being inadequate and being without. And the enemy knows that. How many of us have ever left and did something because it was quick? And it made me feel better about what I thought I was missing out on. So I want y'all to understand the tactics of the enemy. He does not tell you that it's better. And if we really think about it and be true to ourselves, the enemy tells you that it's quicker. Huh? And because we're trying to quench the cravings and the urges, we go for what's quick. And going for what's quick will lead us quickly out of the will of God. And it will cause us not to walk in the fullness of what God has purposed and planned for us. In my closing, if you apply the promo code of obedience, watch this. And the Apostle John said that in verse 8. He said, look to yourselves. He said, if you apply the promo code obedience to yourself, he said, I guarantee you, you will not leave half full. You will not leave without the promises of what God has promised you. And the thing that I want you to understand is, and Pastor Fran is going to say to you, whether somebody likes it or whether they don't like it, I'm going to just cut across the field and be honest with you, because y'all know I'm country. I ain't just talking about spiritual blessings, okay? I'm talking about every area of your life being fully satisfied with the manifestation of what God has promised you. Because sometimes we try to be too spiritual and we just think about, oh, when I get to heaven, God is going to do this and God is going to do that. But if you look over in chapter 28 in Deuteronomy, it was not talking about anything that was spiritual. It had a spiritual purpose, but the things that God was doing, he was doing in a natural sense. He said, I'm going to bless your barns. I'm going to bless your storehouses. He said, I'm going to bless your body. Don't ever let anybody tell you that God does not want to see you prosperous or you're being too materialistic. No, all God is saying is, I need for you to prioritize them in the right place. Woo! Because God does not have a problem blessing you, as long as you don't get your priorities mixed up. Oh, somebody ought to lift up holy hands right there, because I've been thinking that I've had to always be in need, lack, and want. But no, that's not God's will and or desire for you. God just wants you to have those things in its proper place so that he can get the glory out of it. But as you apply, watch this, that even includes mates. Oh, come on here. Because some of us are looking for our God man or our God woman. God said, if you prioritize me first, he said, I'll even make sure you got that. Oh, come on. I'm just making sure that you so committed to me now that once I do give them to you, you won't forget about me. Come on here, Retta. That I got to make sure you don't stop going in the closet. But trust me, when you get him or her, you're going to go in the closet a little bit more. And get you a bed and put it in there. And a mattress. Yeah. Trust me. And we thank God for that. But God is willing to supply everything that you need. I don't care what it is. I need for somebody to type that over in the chat section. God does not care what it is. As long as it lines up with what his will is for your life. You don't got to type that out, Antonio. But as long as it lines up with his will for your life, God does not care what it is. It can be finances. It can be a healing. It can be deliverance. God has no limitations at what he will do to prove himself to you. Whew. Don't let anybody tell you that it just has to be spiritual. It just has to be a deeper prayer life. It just has to be a greater fasting life. It just has to be this. It has to be that. God does not care what it is. He'll use it to manifest himself. If it's in line with his will, if it's in line with his word concerning you, he doesn't care what it is. He knows what you have need of. If you will apply the Obey promo code so that you can live full. As long as it lines up with his will and his word concerning you. And I want to encourage you on the day. Apply the Obey promo code to your life. That you do what God says. That you love God. Not just with a feeling of adoration, but with a committed lifestyle unto him. And I guarantee you, according to the word of God, you're going to live full of the manifested promises of God concerning your life.